Okay, we'll go ahead and call this council work session to order. It's Wednesday, September 6th. I'll open it up for visitor comments. This is an essential part of government meetings. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. The council will take all input into consideration. However, in observance of Oregon open meeting laws, this isn't a time for dialogue, but rather a time for us to listen to you. Our city administrator and city recorder will be taking notes of action if needed. So if you'd like to come on up and state your name for the record. Now visitor comment time.
Sounds not very good in here and I don't hear very good. One thing I'd like to say though is that I believe that you should give me the same courtesy that you did more than the last meeting, because if he'd have kept talking, I don't think you were going to cut him off. So exactly.
Could I have you state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, pardon.
Can you state your name for the record?
Oh,
sorry.
Ron Chalmers.
Yeah.
I learned from the August 16th presentation that Mohammed and Sharon had been working diligently on the reservoir, Mohammed expiring in November 2020. I didn't share their excitement for the time they had spent. It appears to be a time of decision, indecision, and confusion. The settlement agreement wasn't signed until April 8th, 2022. First, we're told that the reservoir is going to be repaired in 2023. Then in May 2023, the reservoir was going to be rebuilt. Then they're going to be built. Followed by 3 months later, August 16th, 2023, we're told it was going to be replaced. The delays described have been the result. The delays that have been described resulted in a 50% increase in replacement cost. There was also the diminished fire protection. All this caused by the city, who has been in control of the timeline as the result of the 2 million gallon reservoir failed rehabilitation. Mohammed gave a St. Helens Master Water Plan report that didn't include the 2 million gallon reservoir. Joel gave an interview of the city's priorities, which didn't include the reservoir. That was an issue that we thought was a priority. But I guess that issue, we were told, the issue that we were told to be, that we were told to be was a priority. I guess that issue it was because the riverfront had become the first priority. The city since October 2019 has been the source of delays by not taking legal action. The presentation was also the city's acknowledgement of the consequences of their actions. Why were city leaders leading with misleading information? This doesn't hide the city's earlier lack of investigation of the reservoir's condition. The repairing of the piping could have been found with testing before the reservoir's rehabilitation W4 contract. The city certainly wouldn't have a reservoir in this condition. The city might have explained why leaking increased just by working on the reservoir when it should have decreased. The public loses trust in the government when we are misled by confusing statements. But people can see the confusing the city council has in improving issues because of the words can be deceiving. The city can't easily excuse itself from the responsibility of years of delay of the failure of the 2 million gallon reservoir. The damning evidence is in the city records. Now, I just want to say, it's okay for the administration to roll their eyes during this time because I'm not going to see it. But I'm here to tell you that the Pittsburgh Road Reservoir might appear to be a failure, but that's not a fair statement. The failure was the rehabilitation plan applied to the reservoir. This is the beginning of 2016-17 events that were not shared with the city. And you will have a beginning cast of Sue Nelson, who was Public Engineering Director, Neil Shepard, who was the Public Works Operation Director, Tim Underwood, who was the Construction Inspector, John Walsh, the City Administrator with lawyers. Kennedy Jenks was hired on June 6, 2016, the engineer for their 2 million gallon reservoir rehabilitation. When I refer to the city, these are the people I'm referring to. Construction activities were all on Sue Nelson's watch. The information is brought to you by the City of St. Helens Records Department and an empty reservoir. You're going to hear terms of due diligence, neglect, and ignore. These are words that reflect the reservoir and the city's action. Due to due diligence was a failing at identifying and assessing the risk before committing to the construction project. The city, by adhering to diligence, could have avoided potentially bad reviews from the consequences. Sue Nelson and Neil Shepard promoted the Kennedy Jenks plan for rehabilitation of the leaking reservoir. The St. Helens City Council accepted the recommendations and it signed the W449 contract. This was a plan accepted as a belief. The plan was going to repair the extensive water loss. It was a belief that 2 coats of epoxy and a geotextile mat was going to stop the excessive leaking. The city didn't investigate to determine the source of the leak. The plan Kennedy Jenks provided was designed using photos, drawings, and historical documents without ever accessing the reservoir's interior. And so where was the city lawyers when this plan for rehabilitation was submitted under these circumstances? The plan's results were a shocking failure. It's good that the city records their council meetings. Someone later going to look at the history of the 2 million gallon revelation and see the city's actions. Recording the history is going to be good information. People often ask me why I'm here. It is an opportunity to show concern for what the city doesn't want the public to know. Another is that where my property is sited in relation to the reservoir, then there is the lie. One of the interesting things I've learned, and by the interest that was shown, until people ask me about my occupation and what degrees I have, there was an immediate change that was shown when I tell them my years of hauling logs, mechanic, plant operator, and supervisor for a ready-mix business. It has taken over 6 years following the city's secrecy and silence. I once thought about quitting because some people said it wasn't worth it. And what were you going to get for it? What I want I would like March 2022 Walker report, consultants report to the city. Walker required client privilege to speak frankly. When you have people saying don't quit, there are other people saying they're paying attention. Rick Scholes told me there's no smoking gun and he wasn't going to discuss it with me, and that provided more inspiration. May 23, 2023, the district attorney told me I just need more new evidence. John Walsh controls the release of the Walker report. And it is being withheld because of client privilege. This is an installment to be continued, so hold your place. There's more to be revealed, and the rest of the story is as Paul Harvey says.
Thank you. Now, I would just like to make a comment on, it's just one thing, Ron, is that when Doug showed up here, he didn't have a script, and he was talking about a fire, which was very much something that we are really in tune to as far as keeping public safety. And talking about the fire district, it was not scripted and he wasn't 10 minutes. You are 10 minutes into your share and I gave you the time and I allowed you to speak.
I thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, folks, and Rick, thank you for the invite to come down and talk to you guys. My name is Pete Schweitzer, and I'm going to be starting a brand new business here this fall, and we'll be ready to roll next spring in mobile staging. I understand that you've got the project going down here at the park right now that's getting torn up, and if you're going to continue 13 nights in the river, you're probably going to need a stage. And I'd like to have the opportunity to put a bid to the city council for next year for all 13.
Yeah, so what he's talking about, and he talked to me a little bit prior to this, and I asked him to come to just share with you guys and see if there was an interest, is these are totally pop-up stages with hydraulics.
They all have roofs on them. The smallest one is a 20 by 16, and in 2025, the two largest that will finally get delivered to me are 40 by 40 and 50 by 38. These are full-size national act size stages that are even expandable beyond that. To the tune of about 1.8 million for all of them is what I'm got investment money coming in for. But I really have enjoyed the shows down here. I've met the gal that books all the entertainment for you, and I've talked to her in the past. I was hoping I got booked this year, but it didn't happen. But maybe next year. I'm a musician as well, so maybe next year we'll have something going. But yeah, I'd be interested. I meant to bring my contact information sheet for each one of you. Unfortunately, my printer ran out of ink this morning and I didn't have a replacement. So I was told to share it with your city recorder. So you guys have my information and everything. But that's all I got to say. Just want to say hello.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I just thought, you know, that you guys want to hear that with all the construction that's gonna be going on, it's gonna be erected, taken down the same day, and move any spot and anything, so. Whether you need to. Not next.
Steve Topaz, 360 State Ellen Street. I have three things to say, two things not on time. One, I just learned that Diane Dillard has a major problem, and I think the city, because she really is our first citizen, ought to acknowledge Diane Dillard. Two, this evening, there will be a acceptance of the minutes of the August 2nd council meeting and work session. I turned in a written document, and it is not what is being reported. In fact, the reported document under minutes is basically an opinion, not the statement that I made. Three, well, we'll say 2.5. Freedom of speech is 3 minutes, important or not important. You don't extend it. If you do extend it, you basically have given up freedom of speech, and the state law is in violation of the federal constitution. Now you can start my time. City Council. Meeting September 6th. Veneer plant, the waterfront, what is it going to be? First surveyed by Mo Forster, who used as a commercial property that had some contamination, but once cleaned up, would be okay. Re-examined by Mo Forster for residential use, the framework plan found to be okay. No mention of contamination. The Spotlight recently had an article about Representative Bonamici's visit, and the property is now going to be mixed use. What are the real plans for using this property? We know the property is contaminated. It has a water level problem. The DEQ has informed the city that anybody using this property would be informed by DEQ about the conditions that are in the soil of this property. The newspaper has also informed the public the mill is closing in the very near future. That means no processed water will be purchased from the city or dumped as hot processed water into the cooling pond / sewer treatment lagoon. It is possible to replace the supply for this needed water from the Multnomah Channel. The city has water rights on its water. It can be legal, but can it be legally used to treat sewage? Another possibility is to reroute Milton Creek as a water supply for the sewage treatment. By doing this rerouting, the flood problem around the police station would be eliminated, as well as some of the flood problems in that neighborhood. A problem that will happen when the mill stops supplying hot water to the lagoon is much of the biological organisms will die. The lagoon is, if the lagoon is turned into a biotreatment facility, it will become a nature park. The levee would have to be breached to bring it to river level. Aaron, our present manager, has information on what it would take to construct a bio sewer treatment facility. Another group that could help is the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. They have been researching the use of freshwater clams for this type of cleanup. Moa Forster has drilled some test bores to determine if the cooling pond can be used as a toxic waste dump. Some of the data suggests that there are some present contaminating factors. The second series of test bores were to be done in the cooling pond itself. What are the results of the second round of testing? The legal problems, the changing subject, the legal problems of the growth facility are where? The growth facility was spearheaded by John Walsh when he designed the contract to sell this property. From the offering price of $4 million to a reduced price of $1.5 million, with no down payment, delayed payment start. A few legal problems later, the city finds the sale is null and void, no money is collected on the mortgage. Legal fees create approximately a $1.5 million hole. A good part of the transition is that a good part of this transaction is that the growth company still has ownership of this property. The mill closing, a few questions need to be addressed. Will the mill have to clean up the process material that has been dumped into the cooling pond? How will the contract John Wall set up with Mark Comfort on the salvage of the mill be handled? There's been no report to the council on work done, salvage materials sold, monies collected. There was a legal suit brought by the mill because of some damage that Mark Comfort did to the operating equipment with no explanation given to the council. The city has been laying out an industrial park on the mill site without having a complete assessment of the contaminated areas. The new owners of these contaminated areas will have to pay for the cleanup. Will the city inform potential buyers of this responsibility? The city should think about not tearing down the leaking reservoir, but turn it into a roller skating rink or a roller dome, or hippodrome if you like. Thank you.
Other visitor comments?
Brave Freedom. The first thing is I would like you to reconsider your Zoom meetings for city council candidates. I think that it's fine to have it on Zoom and broadcast it, but I also think there should be an in-person option. If people want to come, I think it's a lot easier to talk to people and to you, and so I think you should think about having an in-person meeting. The other thing is the Main Street, which I think no longer has an executive director. Arrangement, which I actually supported originally and appreciate Main Street, but I think it's been a complete failure. That they were, in fact, instead of the relationship with the city becoming more transparent, it became less transparent. They started having closed meetings. They have not provided you with any financials or minutes, and I think you need to reconsider that relationship because they haven't upheld their end of the bargain. In fact, they've become less transparent. Speaking of transparency, I know the mayor last week said that he had first seen this gateway. I personally don't hate the gateway. There's a lot of people that do. But clearly the city has not had a good history with installing art projects. And based upon that history, I think that you need a lot more public comment and openness. And I know that you're going to schedule a town hall, but I think that that's really needed. We don't want to have another dragon with a dress on the highway. And let people come forward. Again, I don't hate it. I think it actually looks fine. Although I did see somebody that said that we should do a basalt, which I actually like that idea. Historically, I think. But again, I'm not an architect. I don't think it looks bad, but clearly get more public comment before we move forward. The intersection has not been worked on in a while. And I don't know what's going on there, but it was supposed to be finished by the end of summer. Some end of summer is here. It's clearly not even close to being finished. There's a lot of merchants I know that are unhappy, and it's gonna be a big problem for Halloween Town. So I don't know what the plans are for it, but. Finally, Columbia River, which is on your agenda, Columbia River Fire and Rescue, while I appreciate the city's interest in wanting to help them, everybody wants to have fire. I don't think it's, number one, that the city has the funds to loan them. Number two, even if they do have the funds, I don't think it's a function for the city. If they need to get money, they should probably borrow it from the county. I don't even know if the county can do it. I talked to Margaret Magruder yesterday. She said there's no way in hell she would authorize it. But I certainly don't think it's a city function. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other visitor comments?
Hurry. Tourism, I just wanted to, first of all, thank Public Works for helping do the rescue of the tent moving at the last minute to work with the construction team. They were really prompt, really fast, really competent, and a great help in a situation that could have turned into a disaster. So thank you to Public Works for doing that and that whole crew. And just to let everybody know, if you get questions about Halloween parking or whatnot, Crystal will have a actual tag on the City of St. Helens page so that people can be up to date at the very last minute if anything changes. But we do have a plan. And so if you want updated information yourself, go to the city site for parking, and then any information for Spirit of Halloween Town should be on the website. If you find something that you can't answer, please let me know. But looking good, we're all ready. So if anyone has any questions, just shoot me an email, but go to the city site for parking because there's going to be tons of parking questions. No doubt, but I think we got it figured. So thank you.
Hey, anybody on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
We raise their hand, okay. Hey, so let's go on to our first item, which is a length of service recognition. We have Lisa Scholl, who has 20 years working with the city. And I'm going to read this just because it's rather long, but it's pretty good. Really good, actually. So this is from some of her coworkers. Well, this is in general. Lisa started working with the city in 2003 as a planning secretary. She was then promoted to administrative assistant in 2010, and in 2015, the position was reclassified to deputy city recorder, where she still serves today. And this is written by Kathy Payne. I would have to say Lisa is a fantastic employee and an all-around great human being. She is very conscientious, and her attention to detail is impeccable. I appreciate working with her. She came on board in 2003. I can count on her without hesitation. Lisa often is the default party planner, which is true, for all the city employee events. She does her work with enthusiasm and thoroughness. She is a tremendous asset to the city. Communications Officer Crystal King had this to say. Lisa is a model co-worker and employee. I've had the pleasure of working with her for 15 years, and she has always gone above and beyond her fulfilling her job duties. She is conscientious, reliable, takes on extra duties when needed, and graciously helps with coverage. One of her most admirable qualities is that she embodies agent qualities that the public expects government employees to exhibit. And this is true, absolutely. She's trustworthy, unbiased, and hard worker. She is a true credit to the city of St. Helens and the St. Helens community. And then our city planner, Jacob Richard. There are some employees that employers is blessed to have. And having worked with Lisa in her various capacities over the 16 years, there is no question she is one of them. So you always have a very polite manner, and no, I'm not married to Lisa Scholl, okay? He's married to my cousin, and we are very happy to have her as an employee here at the city, and a huge asset, and I have to a certificate, and then we'll do our next one after this, but we'll go ahead and have you. Pretty bold statements about your coworkers there.
You did, Chris.
Yeah, you want me to take this off? So, yeah.
I guess I can solve.
Uh-oh.
Oh. Good camera.
Oh, by the way, Lisa also is a backup photographer too.
Selfie after this. I'm just.
All right. Yes. Lisa does go above and beyond. She's always wanna do like the last people leave at all the events, Lizzie cleaning up and always consistently there. I mean, we have a good team here and thank you. So our next length of service award would go to Nicole Woodruff, who is our library technician one over there at the library. And I'm gonna read just a little bit because I have it here in front of me, so why not, right? Okay, Nicole started working for the city in 2008 as a part-time library assistant after a brief 4-month layoff due to a budget constraints. She was rehired into her previous position in 2009. In 2016, she was promoted to library technician 1, where she currently serves the citizens of St. Helens. Library Director Susan Bishop had this to say: Nicole is a dedicated public servant, and her attention to detail is important to the smooth functioning of the library. Selecting and preparing materials for collections is part of the backbone of the library. And she excels in this area. She takes an interest in all aspects of the library, and her long tenure means she can provide helpful context. She has a passion for and keeps knowledge of library principles and practices. She designs and presents popular programs for adults. We are fortunate to have had the benefit of her knowledge and experience for the past 15 years, and hope she will be with us for years to come. And congratulations again to Lisa and Nicole. So, yes. Okay, so let's go on to our next item, which is a report from CSAT. Paul Vogel, the executive director. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah,
Glad to be here on a gorgeous fall day.
it is.
Gonna hurry through this so that one day Kathy will write something nice about me. I don't make it through very often. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and report to you, to prove that we're breathing and working and staying busy and doing what you expect us to do. Just as a refresher, because two of our counselors are relatively new and haven't had to put up with me reporting as often. This is really the core functions and priorities of Columbia Economic Team. It's something we're involved with every day. And of course, there's a lot of stuff that truncates out from each one of those headings. Let me just touch on some highlights. Organizational updates since we last talked. We did have our annual membership meeting in July. And it was pretty robust. We had it at the Olmec Additive Manufacturing Center. And at that, the only action item by the membership was deciding whether to renew board positions. And I'm happy to say that City of St. Helens position was renewed on the board. That's a position that John Walsh apparently is doing a good job at, because it was unanimous renewal. We also were able to welcome 8 new members to Columbia Economic Team. All of them businesses, except Olmec is a new member. Since we last talked, our staff, and I'll say team, has expanded to 6. And I'll explain that a little bit. Small business synergy, quite a bit going on with the SBDC, Keep It Local, and Grow, as well as with tourism, and a bit of business recruitment, retention, and expansion, particularly St. Helens centric, and a lot of focus right now on workforce. Next slide, please. Thank you. So at our annual report in 2022, we had 12 clients at the SBDC, been operating a month. Not too bad. This year, we have 50 new clients since last year. We have over 100 potential clients in the queue, but they actually businesses have to register in order to be considered a client by the SBA. We maintain about 60% are women-owned businesses, and there is significant St. Helens representation among the client portfolio. We've expanded because we had 1 director, also the advisor for the first year, and the biggest impediment to taking on more clients simply was time. And so we went and got supplemental funding from the statewide network. And so we brought on a part-time advisor, as well as an additional grant from the network for supplemental help. So the great thing about being part of the network is that you've got the support of the network, and it gains you funding from SBA and the network. The downside is there's an unbelievable amount of reporting and statistical data gathering and that sort of thing. And the support will actually is alleviating the director of that role. He's been covering all those bases up to now. So that's allowing us to really increase capacity, and we'll be increasing our numbers. The goal that the network set for us for this year is 60 new clients. We will have no trouble reaching that. But just to give you perspective, last year, when we set this up, they told us, don't be disappointed if you don't have any clients in the first year, because you've never had one, you're going to get traction, it's going to take time. We were successful enough by December that they arbitrarily set a 60 target for us for this year. We're not going to have any trouble hitting that. It's expanding every day. We also got additional funding for marketing, a video grant. We'll be developing video streams and snippets all over the county in order to get the word out. People want to see stuff, so we give them stuff visually. But we got a marketing grant from the network for that as well. And then a bill was passed this year that for which we are eligible to apply, and it's only for SBDCs, and it could be up to $200,000. And we're going to figure out how to use that. It can't be just for operations. It's got to be for expansion and that sort of thing. The point in all this grant asking that we're doing of the network is City of St. Helens was first in investing in the SBDC. Got us started with our local funding. We want to keep that in restricted funds and really as a corpus for as long as we possibly can. We set things up for a 4-year runway. And we want to use other people's money as long as we can before we have to go back and do another fundraising run. And so far, we're a little bit ahead of target for the 4-year pathway. You will see with the expansion, upcoming programming, lunch and learns, and also a startup boot camp. So that's the other thing that the additional capacity is allowing us to do. We'll be holding those in St. Helens, Scappoose, all over the county. Moving forward to keep it local, you're all familiar with this. The countywide directory, online directory website is rolled out. We've got 500 organizations in it, and we're adding more all the time. It takes about 15 minutes. There's an instructional video. If your business or your organization isn't on this, please get on, because this is essentially a search engine for Columbia County. So please dial up on that. This was through a grant from Business Oregon, and also the operations of it is being sponsored by these businesses and organizations as well. We thank all the businesses here and throughout the county, and these sponsorships will be coming up soon again. If you want to be on a beautiful website, you know where to find us. We'd be more than happy to have you as a sponsor. In conjunction with the website, we hadn't intended to do this year, but had the opportunity. We had some savings from a grant we got from Business Oregon. And so we did a search and we located a mobile app developer, and that is being launched. It's actually under soft launch right now. Tons of features already, a bunch of future features and ways to push notifications out for virtually any organization, any event. It is in soft launch, which means we're working some bugs out. So I'm going to give you a QR code in a minute if you want to scan that and pick up the app. Keep in mind, and we'd love your feedback, first of all. But keep in mind, you'll see a bunch of Texas addresses. That's because some businesses don't want their actual address in their listing. And so right now it defaults to the ISP, which is in Texas. It's being fixed. The item search. So if you want to search burgers versus restaurants, burgers can't do burgers, can't do item search yet. That's being fixed right now. And then we're also still cleaning up some categories and that sort of thing. We'd love your feedback. Love you to go online. If you just want to scan that right now, whether you're Android or Apple, matters not. We'd love to have you take a look, give us your feedback, help us improve it, and we'll keep it moving forward. And it does sync completely with the new website as well. If you have any challenges, let me know and I'll send you the QR directly. Moving forward, Grow Greater St. Helens. This is, as you know, this is a program that the city contracted with CET to fold in under its umbrella for small business with Keep It Local and the SBDC. We've hired a navigator. We're working closely with city staff as a coordinator. We're forming a navigator council, which is local business people that will help guide the asset development and the resource development. The local leadership team is kind of evolving, and our most recent meeting, we've targeted some folks to include in that to make it even more robust. We're hosting, St. Helens is hosting the statewide cohort of all Grow programs next week. Going to be here having dinner downtown, number of meetings and events and workshops. There's a funders lunch scheduled for October, and we've already sent out the save the date, and we'll be including conventional and unconventional lenders from not only Columbia County, but also the urban area, the Portland metro area, to be candid with us about how do you think about lending to entrepreneurs? What are your products and services? What are you looking for? What are you not doing? Talk to us about this and that and the other. The idea being the ecosystem development is building resource mapping and asset mapping for us to be able to make quick referrals to entrepreneurial interests and startups. So the first quantifiable one of those is a funders lunch, and I'm looking forward to getting in a room with a bunch of bankers and venture capitalists and lenders and other types, and seeing them, watching them try to out good guy each other. So it'll be kind of a fun dynamic. And then in December, we'll be doing a commensurate with the grant from Ford Family Foundation to the city. We'll be doing annual reporting with the city. Presuming we're going to get renewal for this, we're making a lot of progress, and we're told we're well ahead of the other cohort, other communities in the cohort. We don't care. We want to get further ahead. So we'll be doing that reporting, keep the accountability, and also keep the funding going. It's a 3-year and possible 5-year funding program. Moving forward, tourism, as you know, we're CET is the county destination management organization. We don't have a hotel motel tax. We aren't funded operationally that way. So almost everything we do is through grants. We did get a grant for a countywide branding exercise. It's rigorous. John can tell you, because he is participating very actively in all of the workshops. As we've got a layer of folks that's community driven, of what we call brand activators, working through this process. And for a guy as busy as he is, having him in these 3-hour sessions is heartwarming. Heartwarming. And I can tell you that in some of the on-screen exercises, he cheats a little bit. We also conducted destination downtown workshops. We had people representing every community within Columbia County. We had tours. We had Travel Oregon here. We did tours, did the workshops, and we came up with some priority projects, but we've got to pin down funding, grant funding. Travel Oregon is about 18 months behind in terms of the grants they've been offering, so we're a little impatient. There is a competitive grant process underway, and there are a number of applicants. I think there are 4 applicants for this. It's a fairly restrictive grant program around accessibility and adaptability. City of St. Helens has an application in. We'll be, as the DMO, we'll be supporting the 4 applications that are submitted. We have a hotel marketing study underway, pointed at the South County. We have a lot of people talk to us and get excited about what they see from the riverfront development in St. Helens. They know that's a couple of years away. This hotel study was prompted by looking at having both conference and hotel space available around Omick with the opening up of the Parker property in Scappoose. And so that we went and got another grant, and we're just completing the market study phase. We'll then go back out and talk to brands that have approached us, and may go into the feasibility study stage as well. We're conducting those studies, so we own the information, and we want to keep that position the way it is. We did get a small amount of money from our region for strategic grants, and so we'll be setting up a process over the next 3 months. I think we've got about $38,000, and whether that goes to 1 or 2 large ones or multiple small ones, trying to assess the need at this time. We've been facilitating a bunch of feature videos with Travel Oregon. It's developing those for their social media and their posts. They were in town in the county last week, and we should see those starting to come up soon. Let's see, I got my visual aids here, and I don't think it's actually on the stands yet. We got an advanced copy because we facilitated this with Travel Oregon and 1859 magazine. I've got copies for you all. But they did some feature writing around Columbia County, particularly featuring Halloween Town. And it's awfully nice to, I don't know if you're a frequent reader of 1859, but people only read it to go find things to do and good things to eat and drink. And so we're really pleased to have a whole section featuring Columbia County. Business recruitment, retention, and expansion. So we are working very closely with a lumber plant investment just outside of Clatskanie. They purchased the property. We're essentially a week away from finding out if their final financing is in place. We've introduced the owners to the community in Clatskanie, be about 30 to 35 jobs, which is a good bite-sized chunk for Clatskanie. And they're staring down the barrel of potentially Next Renewables, which is a massive workforce construction and permanent workforce impact. This would be a little more of a bite-sized chunk, be a little more digestible, and judging from the community meeting we had, a really good fit because these folks are out of Sheridan, Oregon, similar sized community, similar circumstances there. So fingers crossed, that'd be a good one to have. Next Renewables, I won't talk, whoops. So she's trying to hurry me along, isn't she? Next Renewables, not a lot to report on that, except the Sackett Supreme Court decision and the recent EPA determination on waterways of the United States is likely to have a significant impact on the permitting process for Next Renewables. May actually take the Corps of Engineers and their EIS completely out of it, which has delayed the project 18 months already. So we've got a call scheduled with Next this week. We'll learn more, but this could be a very, very significant development, not just for Next Renewables, but for a lot of development all over the country. We've got 3 additional prospective investments that we're working with. And then we have Cascades Tissue that you're all too familiar with. We've been in touch with and in meetings with the executive leadership at Cascades. We share the priority of trying to, number one, trying to find an operator to take over and simply buy and operate the Scappoose plant as well as St. Helens. They've not been successful in that, although I understand they're still looking. I heard there was a flight scheduled in for somebody who was coming to look at St. Helens this week. So we don't know, but at this point, they've engaged a broker to sell Scappoose. You can always call that off. We would like them to have found an operator because you had an intact workforce and you had everything already in place. But the downside of losing those jobs, a lot of which have repopulated to paper making in Southwest Washington. Some of them moved out to Dyno Nobel and other things. Is that the Scappoose plant particularly is a very attractive, very new industrial building and is ready to roll. So they expected to have a decision by the end of August. Then they announced St. Helens would close down. We're looking at probably middle of October before they make a final determination. And I know that John and his team have been a lot of discussions with them about the lease and that sort of thing. And we kind of try to stay out of the city's business with that regard, but we're always standing by to assist when we can. More St. Helens centric stuff under business retention and reinvestment is recently met with Rain Shadow Labs, which is a 22-year-old company here in St. Helens, about 45 employees, and they're on a business plan to double their revenue, double their capacity to $30 million a year. And we've been assisting them with some regulatory stuff, some permitting things, and also accessing some potential programs through Business Oregon. They've got a terrific experienced CEO. They got new ownership coming on board, and that's a really solid operation in 4 different locations. Consolidation of their operations is one of the things we're working with them on right now. Armstrong Property, the Danson's project did not work out from their business planning and their cash flow standpoint. Went back on the market. A winning bid was selected. Apparently there's some disagreement between price right now. So Armstrong has put it back out and is asking for bids from other folks. They might get back together with Scanlon Kemper. We don't know. But we do have a Business Oregon recruitment prospect that is going to want to come and look at that in September. They don't much care who owns it. They just may want to make a deal. And it is a textile, it's a circular manufacturing textile recycling business. They need a fair amount of water, they need a fair amount of wastewater, and they need a fair amount of power, all of which is at the Armstrong site. Kaiser Path House is a company that John introduced us to a couple of years ago. They've been looking to do mass timber mod fabrication and mod building. They would like to go to Armstrong, particularly if SKB develops it as a multi-tenant facility. They're kind of hanging in the weeds, but they have kind of decided they should not be in the industrial development business. They should let somebody else build their plant and then they will move into it, which is a good place to be. Challenges with the St. Helens Cascade closure. Challenges from our standpoint are we worry about the industrial park. We worry about PG not having load because this is the only area in the county that they serve. And those are high considerations for us. PGE is kind of in transition with their community development people. They've reached out and asked for a meeting to kind of talk about an update with their interim person, but that's the city's working on its property. The city is working on its deal, its lease with Cascades. We're going to do our best to keep PGE focused on moving forward and continuing to serve this area because it's going to be essential for that property going forward.
Yeah, and my understanding on those loads there is that PGE might be a better person to have there in order to buy the extra capacity for those specific loads. Because they are PGE.
There are probably different views. I would say yes, because PGE has very robust transmission.
Yeah.
PGE has a very ambitious IRP for renewable development and portfolio development. They're going to need some place to send that power, and because they have to develop it from a regulatory standpoint, they have the capability, and all the more reason we want to keep them focused here, and particularly as they're transitioning people. They got a new government affairs person, they got a new community, they don't have a new community development person. Trying to keep them in the mix, keep them apprised, keep them interested down here. And
But we all know that our whole area has load issues. Is that correct?
well, we do. I mean, we've got CRPUD has about 50 megawatts of headroom. But if you want to get over 50 megawatts, working with BPA is a 7 to 8 year planning process. And once BPA says, uncle, we can't do it, then you have more license to go out to the investor owned utilities and work out other interconnection agreements, power supply agreements, that sort of thing. But it's generally not cheaper, but is generally a little more expedient to work with private utilities than with BPA, which is a Department of Energy agency. There was a recent article in the Business Journal about how BPA is about 10 to 12 years behind in its transmission planning. So it's not just electrons, it's not just megawatts, it's the ability to move them. And so PGE is a critical linchpin here because they have transmission and they can move anybody's electrons on it. So, yes, my view. And then, of course, also regarding the industrial park, the restaurant cap proposal they made to the city still out there and is it's kind of in the city's court as far as what it wants to do. And there are other folks talking about and thinking about the industrial park, and several people want to get into Armstrong, but that's between them, and all we know is the price is over 11.3 million right now. So we'll see what happens. Our keynote speaker at our annual meeting was Vince Porter, who's the governor's senior advisor for economic development and workforce. And I make that point because that's the first time in the governor's office, economic development and workforce have actually been joined together in a coordinated manner. And that's really important because everything is all about workforce right now. And so I'm not going to go through all these, but these are some of the economic development and workforce initiatives and projects that we've been involved in, several of them specifically in St. Helens, but also countywide and frankly, even region-wide. Got a few more. including the maritime sector, which can affect somewhat things a little further up the river, but certainly aggregate mining, the Child Care Collaborative and Early Learning Hub. Shauna is very involved in the collaborative. And we put together businesses, providers, programs, state, economic development. And we've got a grant out right now to the Oregon Community Foundation for a coordinator for that, because we've exceeded the capacity of these other folks for whom it's not their full-time job, to put together some business-oriented, employee and employer-oriented programs and initiatives around increasing not only capacity, but access and affordability of childcare. It's a huge business issue. We've got a future ready application we're part of with PCC for additive manufacturing, and we'll be doing a lot of BRE as part of that. What's coming forward? Additional collaborations. And then what's also coming forward, and I put these out as sort of a next slide, as sort of a watch for these. The legislature in its infinite wisdom gave Business Oregon, the Economic Development Department, $50 million for childcare. They have nobody to do that. They have no idea what to do with it. We are leaning on them heavy and shoving names down their throat as far as people to hire and advisory committees to develop the rules, because this is the opportunity to get business oriented funding, not program oriented, not supports, but business oriented funding to help expand daycare facilities, support remodel, help support financing of providers and that sort of thing. From a business standpoint, $50 million could go a long way to, and we're not going to get it all, but we're going to get more than our share. So keep an eye out for that. And then Paid Leave Oregon, a good idea, a good concept, but let's be frank, the ability to take 12 weeks off is going to have an impact without medical illness, is going to have an impact on small businesses. And it's going to have an impact on all businesses, particularly in a very odd workforce landscape right now. So I am not talking down Paid Leave Oregon, but let's be honest, we're in the first month of it. And there are already well over 10,000 applications for folks to take 12 weeks off, which you can do. And as an employer, if you don't think that's going to affect your ability for retention and consistency in production, think twice. And there's not a lot of relief out there. So keep an eye out for that. We're trying to keep an eye out for that. We don't have a solution, but it rolls right back into the whole workforce focus that we've got right now. So am I over? I'm over. Sorry.
You were way on.
I'll stop. I'll just shut up.
Time to go.
Thank you very much for your consistent support of CET and the SBDC. You've always been first in, and you hold us accountable, and we appreciate it.
So the paid leave, I'm not familiar with that. I mean, I maybe know just a little bit about it. Explain that just a little bit more.
Paid Leave Oregon is a law that went into effect maybe the 1st of September, maybe the last part of August. And I'm certainly no expert on it, but you can apply for 12 weeks leave of absence. You get treated differently if you're an employer over 500. You get treated differently if you're an employer under 25. You can apply for grants. If you're under 25 employees, you can apply for a grant to help defer or offset the impact, but the max is $3,000. Not going to help you a lot. And oh, by the way, now you have to participate in the program. So you don't have to participate if you're 25 or under, but now you do if you take some money. So $3,000 compensation for an employee that's not there for 12 weeks isn't going to help your business that much. So we get that this was done for the right idea for mental health and
You have
people
to pay them, you have to pay them their wage too,
paid leave.
paid leave.
For having the portion of
Having
it,
having babies.
we, like, for instance, we put in 1%.
Yes.
60% of that 1% comes from the employee and 40% comes from the employer. And that 1% goes to the state And then that's what they get paid for, but it's only a portion, they only get paid a portion, and then your accruals, for us anyways.
Yeah.
The accruals would make up
the difference.
up to 100%.
And it's in addition to family leave,
That's long coverage.
bereavement and
Well,
childbirth and that sort of thing too. So. Not drawing a judgment on it one way or the other, it's just. It's gonna have an impact and something that we're gonna have to deal with employers and recruitment and that sort of thing, so. Anyway, I told you I'd stop talking. And here's photocopies of the 1859 articles, if you'd like them.
Anyhow, I mean, come on.
Eating bonbons. Eat on the desk. Any questions? I'm sorry, I did a lot. I try to go over so I don't allow time for questions. Pass these around. I think that's my problem. Questions. Oh, I'm not blind. Do you need it for the record? Yeah.
All right. Crown View Trail, some kayaking, there's the Halloween town. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Our next item on the agenda is, of course, Columbia River Fire District, financial assistance proposal, which was withdrawn, but we felt it was worthy to talk about because it was very in the spotlight. We were in the spotlight, unbeknownst to us.
Well, yeah, we were identified publicly as the place to go to get the money, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, so I spent a lot of time facilitating for sources might be the Race Association, counties, eventually stepping up. And just like last week, we got a letter withdrawn their request, and obviously had another solution, they figured it out.
Can you explain that?
I don't know the solution,
When they just
but
went through
it was through that letter.
Yeah, they went through their letter to be here to talk about.
with no explanation.
Yeah. So basically, we were drawn into this by, we have Ed Aiken Blitzberg for us he's a very.
Okay, so can you explain that relationship?
He's a very tough negotiator. He actually was behind the scenes with our contracting this year with our public works. He's done work for our police, our last police negotiations and the public works the time before the last. He is a tough negotiator and that's why he is probably what brought into the fire district, is because he understands budget and how to keep people on cue and fight for, because we'd love to give everybody as much raises as they would deserve, right? But the simple fact is we don't have a budget. So I don't know.
Record though, he doesn't represent the city
No.
like David Ramesset and like how our others attorneys represent the city. Can you
No,
explain
he
that?
does. He does.
Well, I just want to make sure that it's fully transparent.
Yeah, there's some dual roles here where you say, I'm not representing you, I'm representing the district
Mhm.
and. You know, the question is, they're looking for a short-term fix that doesn't require a bunch of process and meet their timelines, so they don't run out of money and then, right. So, not have services for a period of time until the taxes come in and. The questions were pretty straightforward is, do you have the resources and. And we do have resources in reserve that could, could cover a loan, but theoretically, optics aren't great. We're just the city in a very large district and that doesn't. So we spent time looking at that. If you would try to find others that there. There's no value for St. Helens to not have services for a period of time. So we felt very committed to find solutions.
Well, I understand that. I just want to make sure that it's very clear about his role with the city. Because there's been a lot of questions about how he represents the city, and the mayor was starting to talk a little bit about the different things he's represented on. But he doesn't represent the city on like a lot of our, internal lawsuits and economic stuff for the most part, right? Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
He does labor negotiations. For police and NAFSME.
Yeah.
He also does the more complicated HR kinds of issue advices on those.
But not always.
Not always.
No.
That's up to the cost.
Well, I was just shocked that we were announced in that meeting, and nobody had talked to Mr. Blitz about that. He probably just knows that we have a reserve of 20% in that. We hope to have a reserve of 20%. We're gonna be short this year.
Maybe he
and
didn't even
we'll
know if
do
we
that.
could cover it. He just wanted to come and ask, right? Like,
Well, he understands. He's been doing, this isn't his first time. Aiken Blitz has been around for a long time with this stuff, so. Yeah, but I just wanted to bring it up, whether we can talk about withdrawal, I thought it was very important to talk about these type of questions right here that are out in the community. I think that, there was definitely unbeknownst to us and, Mr. Blitz was gonna make an announcement, you should go to the city to look for funding. So just want to make sure that that was very clear.
there was no prior conversations or anything like that. We were just as surprised as everyone else was.
That's right.
Yeah, and the district, he made the recommendation to them. They made the letter that you saw that to us, and try to work on some solutions.
Well, and
And then they felt they figured it out.
I thought that we kind of did point him in the direction of the county because in my opinion, the fire district goes from Church Road to Rainier, who has the biggest district coverage there? All that fire life. Minute. Not Rainier, not Prescott for crying out loud. City of Prescott has zero money, not Columbia City. Not St. Helens, the county has the biggest swath there.
Well, that
So-
was my perspective also, was that I know, we can.
Apparently, according to Mr. Gruder in public testimony earlier, that maybe that isn't the case, so we'll wait and see what Mr. Gruder has to say about that and the rest of the county commissioners. We can't see it fell. I mean, they can't, it's in their ball court.
Well, that's what I just wanted to say for the
They
record.
really
that
cannot let it fall.
My perspective on it was that it definitely causes a lot of emotional stress. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since it's all happened, it's very stressful. I mean, what would happen if we could not have fire, and EMTs respond in the city? And that's extremely stressful, and I am saddened that it's even gotten to this point. And I hope that we can rebuild and try to get it back to a healthier place. And I also believe that the county needs to step up first and foremost, but I think that we need to take an initiative as good representation of St. Helens and try to get more involved in what's happening in the fire district. Even if it's just a liaison or something of that sort, but there's a lot of cleanup that needs to happen, and I think it's time that we turn our heads to it.
Well, again, they're elected officials just like we are, so that's why I kind of stay in my lane and stay in our swim lanes and this is me, and I understand what you're saying, because we need fire and EMT services here. Apparently this has been going on, they've had a shortfall for a number of years now, at least 3. I don't understand why they did a remodel. If we were involved. I know the letting go of somebody is done very abruptly and on administrative leave, and everything's gathered, and then you do an investigation. So there's a lot of things that I really don't even want to touch with 10-foot pole, because there's a lot of different areas here. I do not blame, and I'm not saying he's right, but I do not blame Gary Hudson for resigning right away immediately with everything that was going on. Not saying he had big, right or wrong. I think that was. Might have done the same thing if I was on that board. That was probably a little too much that I needed to say there, but. Now they have to, it's a big ugly mess and they're gonna have to clean it up.
Yeah.
It's,
And I'm not saying that St. Helens should go in and try to take control or anything at all, but maybe sitting at a table with, other community leaders that are willing to help fix the problems and work on it together. I think that's important because it affects us. It affects the city. It affects our residents and our constituents. So that's.
That's a lot of where my efforts were aimed at, because this, if the loan council were to even consider a loan, doesn't fix their financial challenges. It's much deeper than that. And, a few years ago, Scappoose Fire and Rescue and Columbia River Fire Rescue had merged, and they had a
Joint chief.
they had joint chief and joint administrative and joint finance, and it all
Worked pretty
fairly
well.
well for a few years there, and they were saving money, and it was a pretty good relationship. Got stuck on an issue and parted ways and kind of went back to the old way. Facilitate those kinds of conversations. And I agree, it's important to the city, but it's a little bit out of the lane with the governing board.
So I will just say this to anybody watching us right now and listening in is, sometimes you have to get behind the scenes and do the due diligence and get the information instead of listening to the very loud minority. Actually dig into what's really going on before you start prosecuting somebody out there in the public, whether it be on Facebook or wherever. And understand that, yes, we are elected officials, and you can put somebody in that position that could do extremely a lot of harm in a short amount of time. Or you can come in and get educated and continue to educate yourself. You may not always agree with it. You may not completely understand it. But it does make sense when it's fully explained out, and I think that's what we're doing on here. So I just think somebody jumped the gun, was elected, and too many big decisions were made in a short amount of time. So, okay, that's all we're gonna say about that, unless somebody else has something they would like to say. Next item is economic opportunities analysis update. We got our city planner Jacob Gregson and our associate planner Danny Dimshow.
So we're gonna lighten things up for you a little bit with some boring study stuff.
Star Wars? Do you have any Star Wars quotes in there?
No, not this time, I'm sorry. So tonight you have resolution 1991 for authorization of a technical assistance grant with the state. That is to update our economic opportunities analysis. This is actually a project in our strategic plan. And instead of stumbling upon that tonight going, what is this? We would just want to explain it briefly so you understand that tonight to hopefully make that smooth. So the economic opportunities analysis, state policy says cities and counties must review and as necessary amend their comprehensive plans to provide economic opportunities analysis containing information as stated in there. And basically it looks at our employment lands, our commercial and industrial lands. It's a counterpart to our housing needs analysis, which we updated in 2019. So fairly recently, which looks at residential lands. Now, the housing needs analysis, state law has a very specific cadence or sequence or duration of how often that needs to be updated. The economic opportunities analysis does not have any explicit time frame to it. But the last time we did it, it was an effort from 2008 and adopted in January of 2009. And that was the first one that the city has ever had. And it was actually a response to our waterfront development efforts. The Veneer property or the expansion of downtown riverfront property, that was zoned industrial. It wasn't zoned industrial for several decades. And when we discussed rezoning it with the state, they said, well, you need this economic opportunities analysis. And so that's why it was done then. It was done in-house. Being here, being very new, but seeing it unfold, it did what it needed to do in that it enables us to rezone the property, which has resulted in help facilitate all these things that happened since. But I am not necessarily comfortable with the quality control on it. So there's that issue, and that's something that's bugged me a little bit over the years. But also it's old.
Quality control. Like,
I think it may have been done in haste. And not necessarily the best analysis. And we have better data now too.
so it is zone mixed use and always has been, right?
No, I'm not talking about this property, I'm talking about the analysis as a whole.
That was brought up earlier. This has always been mixed use right down here.
Industrial.
Yeah, it was, may have been heavy. And it was industrial because when zoning was applied, there was a mill there. Just like the Stimson site up by Deer Island Road and some of our other industrial places. So what it does is it helps us consider how much industrial land that we need for things like, is it okay to change the zoning of this from industrial to something else? Because right now our analysis says we have a surplus of industrial land. And something personally, I think we really need to consider, we talk about budgets and all these things. And industrial land is the biggest bang for your buck for tax base. And if future budgeting is an issue, why isn't that considered as part of it? And that's a question for later on down the road. But it's one of those things that I think personally should be included in the findings. Anyways, something that hasn't been done in a long time, we think it's necessary in the strategic plan, and this resolution is the next step to advancing that effort to get a grant. The grant should keep us from having to spend money, it's just our time. The application is in the fall, October.
Yeah, it's due October 1st, which is weirdly a Saturday, so it's really the 29th of September, we'll get that submitted, and it's a $60,000 ask. That will cover the cost of an EOA in its entirety. Sometimes there's additional work like implementation strategies for how to actually implement the recommendations in the EOA. We may be able to get away with doing some of that work with the 60K. It just sort of depends on what the results are coming back as. So if it's recommending rezoning properties and things like that, it could be a different result. Obviously, you all will be a part of the EOA process too, so.
Yeah, it's because we adopt it into our comprehensive plans. Planning Commission Council will get their hands on it. And it's really about updating our plans, our sewer plans, water plans, utility plans, all that stuff. It's all about keeping it as up to date as we can.
When did you say it was done last?
2000, it was adopted in January of 2009.
All the data was from 2008. Yeah.
And so, that was before we knew we were gonna get hammered by the recession, and we bled staff, and there's been a lot of changes since then. And even there was still some mills hanging on then still, which have since left us, so. Anyways, that's what's on for tonight. We hope you approve it. Or approve its signature.
Paul can use this tool.
More stuff for Paul.
I was just sending him a message. I mean, we're more than happy to support grant applications. You never know whether it helps or it hurts, but we hope it doesn't hurt. But just expressing broader economic interest, we're more than happy to do so.
That's it.
Thank you. All right, next item, review of rates increase for waste management drop boxes. John Mull.
Right, this is something that doesn't affect a lot of people in town, but we do have a franchise agreement with Bedford Dropbox Services, the big construction dumpsters that people call and have dropped at their house. Well, most residents don't, that's regularly, it's not like Hudson that has the curbside service. And the franchise agreement has, and you can adjust the rates with that, but it limits it to CPI, and there's a special CPI for that, but it caps it at 1.5%. So this is one of the few things that is this crazy time of inflation and recession where 1.5% doesn't sound too good. So That's on for tonight, and
Just me, or did we not just do this a few months ago?
It was a different one.
Those were garbage and recycling. This is Dropbox.
I thought we were talking about, I thought I remember talking about Dropboxes too, but okay, maybe it was just like getting us ready for this, right?
Well, I think it probably happened.
They probably give us a
the
heads
time
up that
before
this part was
this.
coming too, okay. Feel like it's like every 3 months, I'm like, there's a garbage rate increase.
no, it's only annually, they only go once. But yeah, that's on for tonight, and I don't, it doesn't seem too controversial, same kind of. We do every time that there's a rates change, is that probably has an opportunity to comment on it. And Mayor opens it up for that.
Yep, all right, review your new, let's roll right into the next one, which is review new job description.
Okay, I'll start off with this one by the first one. It's not ready for prime time. It was something that I'd like to pull off of that, because it was not the version that asked me to approved, but the others are. So there's the other prep technician. It's on for the evening session. I apologize about that. It had been vetted, but and the other positions, librarian 1 and the water quality operators 1, 2, and 3. We talked about that. The laddering, Mom has brought that up over the past. So job descriptions have just been sitting there waiting until the collective bargaining agreement with ASME had related to another topic on the agenda, the pay of 4 positions, and we need some extra time, some extra data. That's all happened, some extra negotiation. So settled all that, so the pay for those positions is changing, and there's a resolution about that. And then the job descriptions are also being changed a little bit at the same time. But I would like to do a strike, the building permit technician will bring it back, and it's fully vetted. It went out after, we didn't learn about it until after publication of the agenda. So
Going with all the strike throughs.
Yeah.
Color.
they all look like that. And the process for that is that we work with ASME to get their description. We send it to Lane Council of Governments to do a legal review. Kathy does most of the work. That comes back, goes back. And there's changes, kind of goes around in a circle for a while.
Often are those updated,
Well, this is part of the
Yeah,
negotiation.
this is.
right? How often negotiations?
Yeah, not every contract. Some of the job descriptions are quite old. This one hadn't been done since 8. Yeah. Some of the libraries, Suzanne, I think some of them are in 2006, so.
Yep.
One of the things we do is when we're having a position that changes, that we look at the job description. Needs update. A lot has changed.
Quite a few job descriptions that you would say are outdated, or we pretty well caught up.
Yeah, it says about half.
We just implemented something last year or the year before that every time somebody has a performance evaluation, that they review the job description with the supervisor and the employee. And then if they have any kind of changes that need to be made, then we would bring those up. I think it was last year.
Good, yeah. Nobody knows better than the supervisor and the person doing the work.
Well, I hope so.
But, yeah, I mean, it reads differently, much differently on a piece of paper. A lot of things can be stricken completely. You know? So knowing plumbing sometimes on some of those old job descriptions, we got a plumber. So we don't need, you don't need to know that. Yeah, so. Yep. Okay.
So many changes, it's on the agenda for tonight.
All right, assign, next one is the assignment for voting delegate and alternate for league business meeting. Which was you, right?
That was me last year, yeah.
Yep.
So who wants to do it this year?
It's not the single vote kind of thing for hours.
Yeah,
First year, you did it.
we have to be in the room. time, but
What is-
I didn't realize the mayor left early, so I didn't get to leave early because I had to vote, so. That, the end of the conference was.
So I left and I left my suits in the hotel room and I got clear past,
What did you get?
I got clear past
Leave
this
early.
and I was like, oh, man, I called the hotel, like, I left my suits in the closet, coming back. So then I came and listened to White and his speech and all that, so.
So it's the last day of the conference, they do all of the voting for like, cause the League of Oregon Cities has their own board. John, you jump in if I'm not summarizing. So, and so they wait until these conferences happen to get their agenda items done, so everyone has to vote on them.
It's usually the last morning in the morning after breakfast.
Every city has someone that is their designated voter.
Is this happening the one in October?
Yeah, in Eugene.
Yeah, it's board members, it's appointment board members.
Dawn's on the board.
Yeah, this is made by last year, going off in 2024.
Senior board member.
Senior, yeah.
Now you get me in one office. Right? Do that, Sam.
Did you like, did you go?
Yeah.
Would you like to do it?
You go to Mark. Why don't we split it 50-50?
You can have one as the backup.
Yeah.
They need one alternate,
Yeah,
so.
so,
So you want to take it, is it every year that it rotates?
Yeah, you can do it.
I'll back you up and then.
I was gonna say, I got a coin, you guys.
Oh, if you wanna go that way, it'd be fun being the alternate too. Either way.
All right.
Maybe it's a coin flip. All
I'll
right.
be the alternate, you take it.
Come on,
There
Brandon.
you go. All right.
Little competition. No, just.
I was hoping
I'll get sick on that last day.
As I win, tells you lose. All right, got that taken care of, all right, so the administrator report, I'm lost.
We're back on track, it looks like.
Yep.
I wanted to start my agenda here. There's several things on the agenda that can bring some attention to. One of the first thing is the League Oregon law that went into effect September 1st. And that is, we're seeing some of that as well. It allows 12 weeks of paid leave to use for all these qualifying events. It's 12% of everybody's salary that's split 60-40. And some of that employees pay. And pretty broad reaching, and I think it makes it general policy revisions to accommodate this new rolling forward look with how the lead rolls out. Kathy's way more in tune with this. She's been going to all the trainings trying to get up to date, and it is really complicated because you've got the federal Family Leave Act, you got OFLA, Oregon Family Medical Leave, and this new third layer of this paid leave act, which gives you some money if you have that qualifying event, but then the employers that's our size can use their accrued leave to make it whole, and how much that is. Just it's a lot of things to figure out.
Doesn't have to be all taken at once.
It doesn't need to all taken at once. It can be start, stop, start, stop, start, start.
Really?
It's a tracking nightmare.
That is really. Like, they expect private guys to do, abide to this
No,
too?
25 employees.
25 and higher, any employer in the state.
It's not gonna fly.
Penguin.
That's
It's not gonna fly, but it's here.
funny. Oh, that's a good one, John.
So yeah, so the resolution 88 changes our personnel policies. Kathy's working on that. And ready for approval. Similarly, there's a resolution, let's see, wellness policy. You want to touch on that?
I'll let Lisa get, because she's the one that's been working on that.
Yeah, it's a little bit policy.
Just an update, mainly for grant funding. CIS offers grants, but unless we update our policy, we're not eligible for another grant. Can't remember the other reason we did it.
Door
I have to look at it, what was that?
Door prices.
Oh, actually, yes, when we had all that ethics training, some questions came up about like door prices and raffle prizes that you get from going to conferences. And they said, for the state ethics board said for door prizes, like as people come and attend these events, there's not a cap. I mean, obviously we'll keep it within limits. We only have so much in our budget for that. But we don't have to cap it to that $50. So if we wanted something big, like a paddleboard or kayak, we could do that. And as far as conferences you guys go to, as long as they're, as long as you're not making a decision based on a prize, like a big $150 raffle prize of whoever's donating those items, you can accept those items. Which I wasn't really clear on that after our ethics training. I thought it was pretty
Yes, I know.
much, $50.
So it was, yes, and it changed in 2009 from 100 to 50. It's about all up.
Yeah.
I'm about buying each other money.
Yeah, we just made some updates to fit those things that we recently learned and to be able to get more grants. And to encourage wellness. We want to make some wellness rooms. That's important.
Okay, what else, John?
So the resolution 1990 is the compensation plan for ASME that we talked about, DLC, we talked about drop rocks. I just want to point out here on the approval for signatures for some pretty big things here. Howard S. Wright Construction, the CMGC model, that contract is embedded by legal and ready to go. And good. On that. Tiberius Solutions is a company that does financial analysis, and Bex asked them to take a look at our urban renewal forecasting and also to look at the impacts of what Cascades Leading means to both the urban renewal agency and to the general fund city budget. So that we have, good solid, and they do really good work. Perspective on what it means. Urban renewal, our goal for that are to extend our loan, but we still want for these improvements downtown. That's the way urban renewal works, just debt finance. Largely. Yeah. So we want to know 3 years out that we're be very comfortable in our ability to pay that to the Cascades League. So, and also what that means to our fund budget. So, revenue, top loss of property taxes. It's that, so there's a services agreement for that, and then there's an amendment to Kittleson and Associates for work that was incomplete on the intersection project we did a few years ago that got it going, but then got on the shelf. Now, that project did have the underground power, but it didn't have it was just the PUD's power. It wasn't all the franchise.
4 years ago that was drawn up?
Yeah, so it was, we took it down to bid it. It be good, it wasn't good.
Wasn't good.
So we're having to go back and and the contractors, it's not my job to design it, and they're right, and it's not, so
That's what the issue is in the intersection, right?
that is
Yeah,
exactly the intersection.
Retraining myself.
Lots of.
So now we're pulling that back out.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
is.
we're
lots
not out of
of-
money, we're not, none of that type of stuff.
Contractor didn't retire.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Roundabout.
No, that's never gonna be around about there.
There's gonna be a couple roundabouts, so.
Yeah, I knew that, but I was.
So overall, the project is actually ahead of schedule. With the work that's complete.
Just tell me to put a street light in it.
Confirm, you're pulling that back off the shelf to get it fixed so that we can,
So that
Continue with our-
contractors can bid on the work,
okay,
and yeah,
Did properly on work, yes, because
and continue.
there's always some, a little bit of that, yeah.
right, it'll be back a bit. You see notice out there today, it's being. A little bit of the stormwater that wasn't done is being put in, it's being active, they're gonna put a base course of asphalt, not topping coat, so it's
A little rough.
it's not a forever kind of fix, but it'll be sturdy, it'll last us about 60 days. This is all gonna take to get through design and approvals and everything else. Get past Halloween, it's not about Halloween, it's not that, it's
And
not,
then they're gonna rip that back out and then finish.
Okay, I just want to be totally transparent with everybody in the community. It is gonna have a temporary fix right now while we fix the other issue that stopped the whole project and then come back to finish.
And we did weigh several alternatives of putting in the curb extension, the gutter, you know, putting all that in, doing temporary paving and tearing that out, but that actually tears,
Part of the concrete out.
it tears a lot of the sidewalk out, so almost half, it's a lot less expensive. And what's even more expensive is to not do it right now and do it later. To go back to
So
that.
long story short, it was an oversight of telecommunications, Comcast, CenturyLink, all that, getting underground and going in. That was an oversight, and it's rather to have all those in a trench together is a rather wide, not extremely deep trench, but wide trench.
And our utility providers have really
Worked hard.
worked hard to be flexible
Right.
with their rules and not have the trenches as deep, so there's not so much rock excavation.
So does this extend out the length of the plan for when the project will be done?
We haven't got,
Not extremely a lot.
You're saying two opposite things, so,
and it could by
A month.
a month or so.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking all the questions we're gonna be asked and then.
A reasonable ask.
And then are we gonna stay within our budget for the project, or are we going to have to figure out, come up with the extra finances that we're gonna need now? Or is this, are we still within our budget?
No, we're still within budget. Yeah.
Okay,
It's good.
Wait, when you say this time next year, you're talking about just the intersection?
No,
Oh, we're hoping.
yeah, yeah, they're moving around, working in other areas and doing things. It's going.
Okay, so that, you're down about right here.
sorry, I just have to ask all the questions that, so it makes sense to me and it makes sense to people that are listening.
Yeah, for sure. At the League of Oregon Cities Conference, I've been invited to participate on a panel. And it's called Council Compensation. And the others on the panel are the Mayor of Bend, Mayor, Council President of Ashland, and Wilsonville, and subject is, you know, does and counselors remove barriers that they would otherwise have to participate in council. I don't know exactly how it's gonna go.
What are you gonna say?
What am I gonna say? I'm gonna say that I don't know. I think a lot of people get on the council.
I'll be attending.
Most don't even know they're getting compensated. We do, just make it better.
I didn't know until after I got on. I had no idea.
That's a lot of people. And it doesn't matter, you know, Ashland. There's healthcare or.
Yep.
Healthcare benefits for
Wow.
their counselors, and it's in their charter. So then it's, yeah, it's others. Mayor Bend is a little bit different because Bend has been. The council that appoints their mayor. This is the first year they went to an elected mayor, so they're looking at this and some of our pre-conversation, they seem to be intrigued by our model. And it's really based off of more of a commission form of government, and we have commissioners that are. Commissioners, sheriffs, that kind of thing. And recognizing that public service is a lot of work, and there's some, you know, having some compensation helps out.
All I can say is if I figured it out, the amount of time I put in versus the time I got compensated. I'd be making
It is a
Half
full-time
of
job to do
half
the
of-
job thoroughly.
half of minimum wage.
No, that's great.
Because here's the point, is when you're in an industry where you're dirty. And you have a meeting at 11 or 2. You have to take a drop off at least an hour early to go get cleaned up to make that meeting, because you do not want. I do not feel comfortable representing the city. Sometimes I show up that way, very rare, but most of the time. And then by the time that time I'm cleaned up, do I wanna go get back in dirty work clothes to go back to doing some dirty work?
Well, our council is unique. There isn't anyone on that council right now that's retired. We all work. We
Yeah.
all have jobs.
Council. It's
Mhm.
very different.
It's a balancing act, that's for sure.
Yeah, all other projects, public safety or the police stations moving along. Strand, all these projects are going well. there you'll see a tent down in the park that was, the contractors had originally said that it could be more perpendicular next to the traffic. Street extension is, but at the last minute, there was electrical contractors in there that needed to get it into it and suggestion to move it sideways in the park right there. It'll be gone November, first week in November. Lots going on.
Sell some property.
Yeah, it's gonna. For that.
Anything else?
I know, we do have a executive session though.
Yep.
Thanks,
Okay.
Rob.
So with that, we have an executive session. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. We're gonna go into an executive session or S1926602 real property transaction and age consulting with counsel potential litigation. And we are.